Rishi Sunak, it turns out, has now backed calls for a review into whether Paula Vennells, the former chief executive of the post office, should keep her CBE. This is because of the mess with the Horizon IT scandal. And there's another acronym for it beforehand, but it came into existence in the late 1990s, and Fujitsu took over the design, and they're still pumping out Horizon to manage the accounts and the systems that are being run for Post Office Limited. And Paula Vennells was in a position, presumably, to stop or at least question. Surely, if you see so many people being brought forward whose accounting is suspicious, you must start to think, is it possible? Is it possible that the system itself is faulty, and that these people who initially took over and bought into the Post Office Limited system, they put up their own money to invest in post office, to take on that franchise, to open up a little post office in the back of their grocery store or their newsagents or whatever they were running. And they were firstly judged to be trustworthy. So to overturn that judgment, was there not a point at which she thought something might be wrong? And at the same time, she was practicing as a local priest in an Anglican vicarage. There must have been a point at which she thought there was something wrong, and if she didn't, the arrogance, the overwhelming arrogance of that is almost impossible to imagine. What I find really sad now, this is a lady who was chief executive between 2012 and 2019, so quite a long time. And more than 1 million people have signed a petition calling for her to be stripped of her award. Is she going to be dragged into the system to be publicly humiliated? Why did she not read the room and recognize long before we got to this point that she should hand it back? Her failure to hand it back is a demonstration of her lack of honour, and a demonstration, therefore, that she didn't deserve the honour in the first place. The same issue, surely, comes up when we think about Baroness Mone and her inability to surrender her ermine robes. I know it would require an act of Parliament for her to do so, but to be shown willing to say, look, you got it wrong. Here are the robes, and I wish to renounce my peerage. And the House of Commons, the House of Lords may say, no, 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 please, you've got it wrong. You are clearly an honourable lady. You must remain, in which case, great. She has demonstrated her honour. And the same thing might also be true in the case of Paula Vennells. Here is my CBE. No, no, Paula. Your honour in offering this, in trying to take the full weight of responsibility, throwing yourself on your, not so much your sword, but your little medal, this demonstrates your honour. Please have it back and retire with dignity. But I'm afraid neither of these people seem to think like that, it seems. It seems that these things are going to be wrested from them. And I think definitely the post office and Fujitsu should be there shelling out compensation because they have both failed so dramatically. But more than that, it's a history of failing to sort this out over the last 20 years. It's the arrogance of that stubborn determination that we are right, even if 700 people who were previously judged to be of trustworthy character are hauled up and told that they have accounting irregularities, that they are not to be trusted. And even when they dug into their own pockets and said, look, here is the difference, they're then still hauled up and told that they are no longer trustworthy. There must be a point at which these people working in Fujitsu, these people working in post office say, hang on, is it possible that we are at fault? Is it possible the system is at fault? The arrogance that makes that disdainful shrug and says, no, 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 we cannot be at fault. We are the post office. We are Fujitsu. We are the government. This arrogance is the same arrogance which is processing your mail. No point in putting it in this box, or put it in this box, and you ring up and you say, I think something's gone wrong. No, of course not. We are the post office. We control Royal Mail. Nothing goes wrong on our watch. The point at which you say nothing goes wrong is the point at which you have overstepped the mark of credibility. The point at which you claim infallibility is the point at which people smirk and say, well, frankly, I just don't believe you. Even the Pope only claims infallibility on a very limited number of issues. And even then, only when he is speaking entirely in harmony with the rest of the church. So for the post office, for Paula Vennells, for Fujitsu, for Baroness Mone, to all stand on their, I was going to say stand on their honour, but they don't have much of that, stand on their dignity, is to defy reality. Sunak's spokesperson said it should not be the taxpayer alone that picks up the tab for horizon compensation. No, it shouldn't. But the government has equally failed in its duty. And I quite agree. It shouldn't be the taxpayer that foots the bill here. For Baroness Mone's failings, or for Paula Vennells' failings, or for the failings of Fujitsu, or the failings of Post Office Limited. I'm afraid individual ministers need to be held accountable. And actually, while Mr. Sunak's spokesperson is making a distinction between what the government wastes and what the taxpayer has to pay, we should remember the amount of money the government has been wasting on its ridiculous Rwanda scheme. We should be remembering the amount of money that the government has wasted on ridiculous PPE. We should remember the amount of money that the government has wasted taking things to court, trying to prove that what is declared unsafe is now by government decree declared safe. We should remember all that wasted government money, which, this spokesperson says is surely taxpayers' money. Is the government using taxpayers' money wisely? Because if it wants to invoke that term, we can invoke it too. The culpability of Fujitsu or otherwise is being examined as part of the independent inquiry process. We will not act until we have established the full facts, says the inquiry. But actually, the pressure is on, and there are certain full facts which are already well known, and some activity is required. So dragging your feet, Post Office, is not going to work in this instance. You need to do something to restore the dignity of the people who have been serving you and serving you with goodwill. Because you've behaved appallingly, Post Office. And, the longer this goes on, the more we should be saying that to people in the government, to people in Fujitsu, to individual named people, and I think Paula Vennells can already be singled out as somebody who's not behaved well.